everybody and welcome to this week's Tune In Tuesday. Now many of you saw what we got up to for last week's Tune In Tuesday when we headed down to Constantine Bay to excavate an old plastic burial site. Now I promised that for this week I would sort out all of that plastic to show you exactly what we found. So as promised, here it is. Okay, so I've come back for day 2 of the big plastic sort. Yesterday you saw that I was scooping out with sieves the plastics that had been soaking in the water. Now the idea behind this was to try and separate some of the plastics from some of the natural bits that got in there, the bits of twigs, sticks, seaweed. And the reason why I left this about a week because I hoped that the water would make some of the natural stuff so saturated that it would sink and the plastics would float, and you can see that a lot of it had worked. When you look into the water now today, there's a lot of natural stuff in there, so I'm left with just this big mix of plastic and a few tiny bits of twigs. Now the perks of having a giant polytunnel from Trevisca Garden Centre is that it's really trapped the heat. I might have to take a few layers off because it's really warm in here, so all of this has dried out over last night and this morning. So now what I'm going to do is, using a different sized sieve, a different sized mesh, I'm going to try and separate the microplastics from the macroplastics, and then all I have to do is pick out the remaining bits of natural stuff from the macroplastics and of course see what treasures we have found. After a fair few hours and a very sore back from leaning over for so long, you can see that the tarp behind me that had the drying out plastics on is now clear, and this is what we are left with. So we've got 2 crates, one with every piece of plastic and anything else that was on the tarp that is bigger than 1 centimetre is in here, and then we have everything that is smaller. So in there it's not just microplastics. Microplastics by definition are any plastic less than 5 millimeters. So I have another sized sieve, a different sized mesh, so I'm going to re-sieve the microplastic and other plastics less than 1 centimeter mix tomorrow, but I'm going to put it all back out again in its 2 categories and leave it to dry because it's still a little bit moist, and then tomorrow I can do a process called winnowing, which is where you then finally separate the last of the natural stuff from the plastic, and you'll find out a bit more about that tomorrow. But for now, I need a rest. so it is the next day. I've come back and the plastics are still quite wet. It hasn't been as toasty as it was the day before, so they haven't really had a chance to dry out, which is unfortunate because I need it to be bone dry for me to winnow it, to separate it completely, all of the plastic and the natural debris. So slight change of plan because I need to have my Tune In Tuesday out on a Tuesday. We're tight for time. I'm going to do the second sort of the microplastics, so using that smaller mesh sized sieve just to separate them out even further. And then we have our three categories. We have the larger items, the plastics bigger than microplastics but less than 1 centimetre, and then the microplastics. And then I can also run through some of the interesting things that we have found. So the only thing for me to do now is sieve this lot of plastic. Finished off the final process of sieving and it was so satisfying. So we have our three plastic categories. We have the items that are larger than 1 centimetre, they're over here. Then this is what I've just done. So over in these two crates we have all of the microplastics, so they're all less than 0.5 centimetres, so that's 5 millimetres. And then over here we have the plastics between 0.5 centimetres and 1 centimetre, so just bordering on microplastics. And I'm so impressed by how well the sieving actually worked, and it separated all of the microplastics from the slightly larger items. It is so satisfying to look at. Now all that's left to do is to just go through all of the really interesting bits that we found. And as I said, there is still a bit of sorting to do in terms of separating the plastic from the natural debris. That can only be done once it's dry, so I'll do that another day, but keep an eye out on our page because I will be posting about that. But for now, check out all of the interesting things that you know are going straight in my beach cleaned plastic collection. Okay, so after a long few days of sorting out all of that plastic, I am thrilled to say that the results are in. Now, as you saw, there was absolutely loads of pieces of plastic that came out of our big dig down on Constantine Bay, but there were a few bits of importance, interest, beach combing treasure that you saw in those final few clips there. So I've written down some of the ones that I think you may be the most interested in. And I'll start off with the Lego. So we found 2 pieces of Lego, and that was a blue flipper and a yellow harpoon gun. Then we have 5 Smarties lids, 1 crisp packet from the 1980s, 5 needles, 14 plastic disposable lighters, 8 glow sticks, 83 plastic stemmed lollipop sticks, 36 shotgun cartridges, 50 plastic straws, and I think the most shocking of all in every aspect possible is 899 plastic stemmed cotton bud sticks, which is absolutely unreal. And this, as you saw, just came out of that one excavation dig down on Constantine Bay. Now you may be wondering what my favourite of all the finds were. it has to be some of the plastic toys that we found. I find crisp packets all the time, and I find Lego quite often too, but the plastic toys is a real treat, especially that tiny little plastic ship. I quite enjoyed that. So I hope you enjoyed this video and seeing what we found down on the beach. Thank you so much again to all of the volunteers that helped us excavate and sort this lot of plastic. It's been something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. Now, some of you may also be wondering about that fatberg that we found. We have sent samples off to CFAS, so hopefully we will have the answers soon of what exactly it was. So thank you, of course, to all of you for watching, and I'll see you next week for next week's Tune In Tuesday.